What a Catch, Part 111, a Miraculous Ladybug Fanfiction. If you have not heard the previous 110 parts of this story, you can find a link to them in the description box below, or check out the playlist. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel to stay up to date or to discover more Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and a comment in support. This part does deal with anxiety, PTSD, and other mental disorders. Anyone who makes a comment joking about triggers or any other kind of mental illness or stigma will have their comment removed and will be banned from making comments in the future. Mental illness is something to be taken seriously, and therefore making light of it will not be tolerated on this channel. Now then, let's move on to What a Catch. Marinette rubbed her hand across Adrien's back as he flagged down a taxi. They hadn't spoken a word after Natalie left, but his body language and tight shoulders testified to the anxiety laced through the air. She moved her hand down his spine, wrapping her arms around his torso and pressing her body to his back. "We'll find him." "Just the two of us?" The doubt in his voice hurt her. "You forget, my kidder, that we are excellent as a duo." He gave a soft chuckle. "Just promise me we won't get a divorce when this is done." She sighed, knowing he was only half joking. "You know," she began, "the 13-year-old me would have a heart attack if she heard that." He smirked and placed his free hand over hers. "I love you," Adrien said. Marinette squeezed his waist and inhaled the scent of his cardigan. She'd gotten a few moments of his natural scent over the past couple of days, but they'd been sleeping separately because of how he'd flailed about when unconscious, to the point of hurting her. She'd learned more about his akumatization through his sleep talk than he remembered overall, as the PTSD he suffered from was more than anxiety and triggers. Speaking honestly, Marinette was worried sick about him. There was a possibility that he might suffer for the rest of his life because they didn't catch Hawkmoth early enough. Because she didn't catch Hawkmoth early enough. Marinette jolted as a hand pressed into her shoulder. "Hey," Adrien said, his voice soft. "Don't do that." "Do what?" Her hand instinctively went to fix her hair. "You're blaming yourself for something again, aren't you? And here I thought we could enjoy a moment." She sighed and nodded, aware her husband knew her better than anyone. His insight was as sharp as ever, and she'd forgotten how much she'd missed that. "I think Natalie is lying." The taxi pulled up, and Adrien stayed unreasonably calm. "Yeah, I think she is too." "Do you want to go home first, or swing by the grave where your dad is buried?" "We'll go check the tombstone tonight. I need to talk to your parents first." "You do realize my mom doesn't blame you for what happened?" "I ruined a family heirloom, Mayor. The least I can do is apologize." "It's just a dress, Adrien." "Yeah, but I'm the one who insisted on the chocolate frosting, and also, side note, you want to go to a graveyard at night?" She watched him bite back a smile. "Don't kink-shame me," Adrien said. Marinette rolled her eyes, succumbing to the opportunity. "Kink-shaming is my kink," she said, happy to see a yellow car pull up. "Man, I can't wait to catch up on all the vines I missed." "Oof, nobody told him about that, did they?" Honey?" "Yes, Bugaboo?" Adrien's voice turned rather flirtatious as he slid a suitcase into the back seat. "Vine is dead." Color fell out of his face as she let herself in. "You're joking," Sorry, kitten. This is the worst day of my life, he whispered, staring out the window for dramatic effect. That's what you told Nino when you first heard the news. Great. Twice the disappointment. Yes, but think about how many times Nino got to rickroll you and you don't remember it. That makes it worse. I definitely got him back for it, and no memories to prove it. Marinette chuckled to herself as the taxi rumbled forward, making a mental note to change her husband's phone alarm to "Never Gonna Give You Up." He'd get a kick out of it and blame Nino at the same time. 2 birds, 1 stone. Adrien fell asleep on the way home, which came as no surprise. He hadn't spent more than 3 hours awake at a time over the last few days, partially due to his nightmares waking him up in the middle of the night. It wasn't anything a lucky charm could heal him from. All she could do for him was give support as Marinette, his wife. Speaking of being his wife, should they get married again? Without her having a near-panic attack at the altar this time? She blinked away her doubts to rest her head on his shoulder, the background noise blurred by her stressful thoughts. They'd be at her parents' soon enough, and while they may have their approval, there was an awkward conversation waiting for the both of them. It took all of her self-control to stay awake the ride home, knowing she'd have to get Adrien up as well. Unexpectedly, her parents came out when they saw the taxi pull up. They didn't know she was coming, but she could tell they were worried. She went to New York City with little warning, and then they got their memories back. Her father opened the door for them and pulled out the suitcases as she shook Adrien awake, relieved to see they weren't upset. "Hello, my bug," Tom said, sweeping her into a hug when she stepped out. Adrien followed her, only to be snagged by her dad's other arm. His face tensed up, and Marinette could tell he was holding back tears. How touch-starved was he? Or was it because it was her dad? Tom hugged them a while longer before stepping back to take a good look at them. She'd only been out of Paris for a week, but it seemed like months. "Come inside," he said. "We're just sitting down to eat." Marinette felt Adrien slip his fingers between hers and squeeze, showing support. They made their way inside and sat down, dancing in conversation with small talk of airports and taxi service. She was nervous, not for her parents, but because Adrien's anxiety was through the roof. "Would you like butter with that?" Sabine asked, watching Adrien cut open a roll. He stiffened in surprise and met her eyes, only to flick his gaze away. It was time. He set down his utensils and straightened his posture. "Actually," Adrien began, "I'd like to apologize." "For accidentally flipping the wedding cake, chasing Marinette out the door at the venue?"
"Well, it was more like a head dive as he tripped on the bridesmaid's dress, but sure, he flipped it," Tom said, biting into his sandwich.
Adrien pursed his lips before continuing. "Judging by the Akuma, I clearly upset you. I'm sorry. I know that dress was an heirloom, and my lack of coordination stained it." "Adrien," Sabine began, "and I'm the one who wanted the cake to be chocolate. It's my fault through and through, and—" "Adrien, dear." "I'm sorry I ruined it. I know I can't replace it, and I hate that within minutes of marrying your daughter I messed up. Adrien." Sabine cleared her throat. "The dress is fine." His eyebrows shot up, leaving him open-mouthed in the middle of a sentence. "I beg your pardon?" he said. "OxyClean. Marinette was a messy child, so I've had my fair share of fights with stains." Marinette glanced at her father to see a small smirk hidden under his mustache and sighed, catching Adrien's attention. He'd stressed so much about this that even she forgot about her parents' personalities. There's no way they'd hold a grudge against their only son. The thought made her smile. That's right. He was their son now. She reached over and squeezed his hand, noting how red his ears were. She knew better than to tease, but this was sure to turn into a family joke sometime soon. So? Sabine continued. What are your plans now that you're back? Are you moving in together? Adrien's face turned pink. You're married. It's a shame that little apartment you had isn't available anymore. What a waste of a down payment.
Are you still working for your father? Our memories seem to be a bit fuzzy, Tom added.
Will you excuse me? Adrien asked, standing up from the table abruptly. I need to, well... We're expecting a phone call, Marinette said, placing her hand on his back. Judging by the color of his face, he was about to have another panic attack. That'd be the third one in the last 72 hours. We'll be right back. She walked him upstairs and let him cry on her shoulder, rocking him back and forth as they sat on the chase. It was a bit different than the other 2 times, and this time all she felt for him was love. Not worry, not anxiety, just love and relief for him. He'd probably worried about this the entire time he was akumatized, and it was catching up to him now. Marinette closed her eyes and leaned backward, pulling him with her. The smell of his green apple shampoo teased her nostrils, and she sighed happily, content to be with him. Despite all that happened, she loved life, especially with him in it. The time she spent in her adult life without him, although not unhappy, were bleak in comparison to the last few weeks, drama and all. She loved him, through and through. It was that love that would protect them going forward. She was sure of it. Thank you so much for listening. Wow, both of my legs are asleep from this recording session. This is not the only thing I've recorded today. Oh, I gotta move. Anyway, peace out, y'all. As usual, there's links to more videos in this end screen. Bye!